Hello, everyone of the internet and beyond. My name is Jonah Crandall, and I was asked to take the vulnerability challenge by a friend of mine through her video, the always awesome Kayla Fanoff, the link to her channel, and the original vulnerability challenge, the thing that started it all, because this is going to become a huge thing. I can feel it, will be in the description. So the vulnerability challenge is basically a way for us to show love to one another, because if you know that someone's going through a hard time, or you know something about someone that makes them fallible or vulnerable, you tend to treat them with a bit more love and a bit more respect, and just you treat them more kindly than you would as if you thought them invincible. So the idea of the challenge is to present 3 things that make you vulnerable, and then nominate people to do the same, so that we can all spread a message of love and breaking out of our comfort zone. This is really hard for me to do, to break out of my comfort zone, because I'm so used to putting on this facade or this mask of just I'm happy and I'm silly and I'm go-lucky all the time. And for me to open up about stuff that really isn't all that happy-go-lucky, it's making me vulnerable, and I haven't even said a word yet. So that being said, I think I'm going to start off with number 1. Many people who meet me will immediately pick up on the fact that even as an adult or a young adult, I have ADD. Meaning I can't focus on anything. I'm looking around the room as like right now. And because of that, my mind will go to a billion different places at once. And a lot of times it makes it hard for me to have a sort of filter when I do that. It can really, I come off as like weird, and I'm really self-conscious about that. It's just, I don't know when I'm doing it, when I'm going too far, because I think, oh, this is okay, and I'm not focusing on like the little subtle cues that people are giving, like just a little look. I'll ignore it if I'm not like taking a medication for it that day. I'll miss those little subtle looks that are like, Jonah, shut up. And on top of that, I'm just, number 1 thing is just the mental illnesses I've gone through. So ADD, alongside that, I've struggled a bit with anxiety due to my ADD. I always get really anxious about, am I going too far? Am I not going far enough? Am I making this person upset? Am I bothering them? What am I doing? Oh my gosh, I just did something wrong. And I will overthink, and I will constantly just work myself up over nothing. And that's something I deal with a lot. So yeah, those 2 things. Number 2, this is one of the harder ones. Quite possibly the hardest to talk about, because of how traumatic it was for me. So about 2.5 years ago, I was riding my bike, my headphones in, just riding along after dinner, trying to get fit or whatever, and I was so close to home. I made a left-hand turn, and before I could even blink, I realized that I had just been hit by a car. A red SUV. It hit me about an inch away from my lower spine, and I don't remember too much of the impact. I physically can't remember it. I just remember a few flashes of time slowing down, where like seconds became minutes, and I just remember waking up on the ground, my face hurting, my hand uh, lots of cuts and everything. I remember noticing that half of my tooth was gone. And by the time that my first responder had gotten there and they'd gone over all the damages, I realized that I had like some sort of compound fracture in my wrist. The bone was not too far from sticking out completely in my body. Along the edge of my face was completely cut open. I remember the gash, my mom describing it, was the gash was about that deep. It's about 2 inches, so my face shouldn't even go that deep, so how it went that far, or how they used that much of the swab to try and get all the gravel out of my face, I don't know. There's a nice cut over my eye. I broke part of my hand. And I distinctly remember being in the back of the ambulance, hearing a voice just telling me to go to sleep, that everything will be better when I go to sleep. And then I just remember another voice telling me that if I went to sleep, I know exactly what would happen. I'm not making this up. I smashed my head a couple times. I must have, to shear off half of my tooth. I made impact with the pavement. I deduced from 2 years of going over it in my head. I remember the trauma of sitting in the hospital and then trying to decide whether or not they're going to send me to one hospital to deal with my broken bones or another hospital because of how I hit my head and how close the car was to my spine, the impact was, to make sure that I didn't have any permanent damage to my brain or my neck or my spine. Luckily, none of that happened, but the road to recovery was pretty rough. I think the most vivid memory of that night was when the doctors would come in. This is probably about like 1 or 2 in the morning. There were about 5 doctors in this miniature, like portable x-ray machine. They had 1 doctor on one side of me, 2 nurses and another doctor, and then an operator for the machine. And they just sort of leaned over to me and said, "We're gonna have to pull your arm back into the right position because we can't set it here. We need to do this now, and it's going to hurt." I just remember a countdown and them literally pulling my arm, taking x-rays, and trying their hardest to push it all back into the right position. All of the x-rays, and even after the accident, the depression that I went through, just from having the use of my body being taken away from me. Because of how I broke my arm, they had locked my arm up in a full arm cast, so I could barely move my hand. And because of where I broke part of my hand here, it was like this weird claw thing. It was like 1/3 of Wolverine. As such, I couldn't hold a spoon because of where the car hit and all the bruising and the pain in my back. It hurt too much to get out of bed in the morning, so I was sleeping on the couch. And I remember the sense of shame and the sense of helplessness as me, as a 16-year-old, like, you know, supposed to be working on getting his driver's license for independence, not even being able to feed himself. And just the sense of just the blow to my ego and the blow to my pride was severe. But I like to think that I've moved on from that accident, but as I found out this year, actually, I think some of it stayed with me because I remember having a panic attack during a road trip with a couple of my friends. We had witnessed a car accident taking my friend home down to North Carolina, and And I just remember seeing that accident and then trying to go to sleep, and I could not shake the images of the doctors pulling my arm back into position, stitching my face up, and all of the x-rays, and all I could focus on was the memory of that, the pain that I went through, and the trauma of it all was overwhelming, to say the least. But, you know, through my friends, I haven't had an incident since. That was back in the very beginning of September. I haven't had any sort of incident since, and the most you can tell from me is that I'm just a bit jumpy when I'm not driving a car. So if I'm in the passenger seat or if I'm in the back seat, I'll be a bit jumpier than normal. But aside from that, and the third thing is I probably never guess, judging how from I was the guy doing the Harlem Shake dressed as 50 Shades of Grey at this year's Halloween party, putting myself out there in ways I would never have imagined myself doing. But I have a very, very poor self-image. I find it very hard to love myself. And I mean, I know that I am a creation and a child of the one true King, and as such, I should never let anything devalue me. But it's, for whatever reason, it's extremely hard for me to love myself and think of myself as good enough. And a lot of this started back in grade school, 4th grade. I had moved to a new school. It was about that time when I started noticing my ADD was at its prime. I was extremely hyperactive as well, and I had no filter. I was also really, really smart. I mean, I could comprehend, I was comprehending the science behind black holes and how time travel could happen as a 10-year-old kid. All of that mixing together, being the new kid at a school in a classroom where quite literally everyone moved up into the same class. It was this weird freak phenomenon. And I got thrown into the middle of it. Everybody was already close. And I remember the first day of school, my mother telling me, "Jonah, don't worry, it's the first day of school, everyone's the new kid." And nobody was the new kid, except for me. And I stuck out. I was bullied and picked on a lot. And I cite 4th grade as an example because it started in 4th.
I don't know. It will make it if it stops.
Alright. Greetings. That's a terrible way to start a video. But I was short on top of being pudgy as a 10-year-old kid, so it was not pretty. On top of being really weird, I was a walking target. I remember just all of the things that they would say to me, like, you know, Gaylord, retard, nerd, geek. I don't know why I took nerd as an insult, because I was. I remember their favorite, like their absolute favorite, they'd say it every day, was just looking at me in the face and saying, "Nobody likes you," over and over and over again. You know, that kind of stuck with me for a long while. And eventually, my body image came into play, and I remember looking in the mirror And it wasn't even them. I was starting to lie to myself and saying that I was too fat. I was too, I was not good looking enough to be around people. I was too fat. I was this. I was that. And it continued. 5th grade, I went back to my old school before moving, just because the faculty wouldn't do anything. They knew that I was being picked on, and all they would do was just send me to the counselor, and the little brats, or I'm sorry, I graduated them, the alumni of my graduating class wouldn't get in trouble. They'd just walk away. It'd be a slap on the wrist saying, "Don't do that again," and I'd be left even more out in the open because, "Oh, I picked on you, you got me sent to the principal's office," and it'd come back twice as hard. 5th grade, I went back to my old school, and it continued. It's the Gaylord, retard, loser, on top of me telling myself I'm too big, I'm too nerdy, I'm not well liked. And 6th grade, they took the kids from 5th grade and the kids from 4th grade, threw them together, so now it was double fronting from all of these different people. 7th grade, the same deal. 8th grade, same deal. When you hear that over and over and over again, and you start lying to yourself, and you start telling yourself that what they're saying is the truth, it brings you to a really dark place. And so, because I can't stop talking now, and I feel like it needs to be said, because so many people go through this, then I cannot keep myself silent about it. I'm actually going to do a 4th thing that covers all the other 3 things that make me vulnerable, is my bouts with depression. 8th grade, I remember getting very, very low. Not as low as later years, but I remember it being a very low point where I wouldn't want to go to school. I wouldn't want to go to classes. I wanted to drop classes. I wanted to move out of the accelerated program just so I wouldn't have to be around a certain group of people that would make fun of me day in and day out. I remember my parents, I love them to death. They took me to the doctor, and that was the first time I had heard that I was clinically, depressed. And as a 14-year-old kid, clinically depressed because of other 14-year-old kids. It sounds pathetic, but it's not. It happens, and it shouldn't happen. It's really hard to shake that, to shake depression, because it's like this parasite that latches onto you. And you think it goes away, but really it's just out for a while. And it can creep up and attack you at other points. I remember after my car accident, this was the summer between my 10th and my 11th grade years, I remember getting to a really, really low point. I couldn't feed myself. I still thought I was too fat. I couldn't do anything about my body image, my weight, the way I looked, because I was so injured. I couldn't get up from the couch, let alone start doing push-ups, sit-ups, all of these things to keep my my body trim. I couldn't eat solid food because I'd broken my jaw from the impact. So I was stuck sucking things through a straw, and I didn't always choose the best option. Sometimes it was pudding, sometimes it was a soup, sometimes it was mashed potatoes, other times it was like I'd drink soda instead of like a protein shake. So that didn't do anything to help me. And then it's midway through, or just shortly after, You know, the incident where I couldn't feed myself. I was sitting there and I was realizing my mother has to spoon feed me as a 16-year-old. I started to wish that, and I'd scream it, I'd say it while I was laying there, just in tears. I wish that the car had finished me off, and I remember distinctly saying, I have half a mind to go back out into the street so that another car can finish the job what one started. I wanted to die. I had been brought so low that I thought that this recovery was never going to happen. I'm stuck like this. It's just hard, and I didn't want to live. I remember one night it got so bad that I took a little sling that I had. You know, to keep your arm like up like this. I remember just crying, going up into my room, and I didn't want to kill myself because that would have been going too far. But I just wanted to choke myself out and go to sleep. And I remember standing there, wrapping the little arm thing around my neck and getting ready to start pulling. Just to try and choke myself out so I could go to sleep, so I could at least have some sort of escape from the pain that I was in, the physical, the emotional, the mental, all of this stuff going on. And I remember that night I just broke down sobbing after like ripping the thing off around my neck. I remember sobbing and crying out to God about how could that happen to me? How could I be brought so low? How could I be so depressed that I wanted to end my life? And there are still days that I have where I feel not that low, but I feel really upset over something, the way I look, whether or not people like me, which is such a stupid thing to worry about, but I do. But through these invulnerabilities, through these things that make me fallible, I found something amazing. And I found that I wasn't alone. And I'm happy to say that while I'm not completely free from depression, where I still have my days and I still have my dark points and my low points, that I have found my purpose. And I don't think I could ever consider taking an action other than, like, you know, listening to some music as like the darkest thing. I could never consider wanting to end my life or harm myself or anything like that, because I found such amazing friends through like, you know, through college, through God, and so I guess I want to leave this this vulnerability challenge off. And I know it's been extremely sporadic. That's the ADD. I guess I want to leave this off by challenging you, the viewer, to either write a Facebook post, write a tweet, make a video, do something on Vine, Instagram, whatever, to get out the vulnerability challenge. Just with hashtag vulnerability challenge. You know, my friend Kayla, like I said, I'm so blessed to be able to call my friend. I'll put the link to her video in the description. But I also want to leave it off with, if you're going through something hard or something like depression, and you're starting to have those darker thoughts, don't keep them to yourself, because that's what I did. You know, my parents watching this now, this will be the first time they hear about just how low I got. And don't keep it to yourself, because when you bottle it up, it hurts. And it becomes so much worse. It's like poison. When you take something that's poisonous, you don't like keep it in your stomach and hope that you ride it out. in the hope that you don't die. You go to the hospital, you get an antidote, you vomit, you do something, you get it out. And that's what depression is. It's poison. There are so many numbers you can call. There are so many websites you can go to. Even if you feel like you don't have anyone in your life you can talk to, this is my personal belief. I don't know whoever's watching this, if you're spiritual like I am, but even praying helps. You can all, to my friends in real life, or anybody watching this really, if you're going through anything, I don't even care what it is, you can come up to me without even saying a word. And if you need a hug or something, words of encouragement, just do it. I can quote the Shia LaBeouf motivational speech, and I've heard that helps people feel better. So if you need that, let me know. But most of all, if I could stress anything enough, is don't keep those thoughts to yourself. Because, there are people in my life who have lost people very close to them because they kept those things to themselves, and they made a decision that can't be corrected. There are people in my life who've been affected by suicide, and that's not something you can take back. You get one life. Don't keep it in. Be vulnerable. Get the word out, and have a blessed day.